You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where we are just 6 weeks away from the election. But the election is now in not the most exciting time. We had our fun until last week when we had the deadline for parties to register and merge with each other and find out who they really are. And next week we'll start with the process of disqualifying those parties. This is a pretty dead week politically, which is nice and somewhat relaxing. But what the real focus is now on, when we don't have to deal with the nitty-gritty of Israeli politics, is that an amazing thing is going to be happening later on this week. 49 delegations of presidents, prime ministers, kings, and princes from around the world are going to be coming to Israel in order to participate in events marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. This is a very big deal. This is prophecies coming true. This is the world showing that Israel is a place where they can come and perhaps even say they're sorry. And so in order to speak about this monumental event, we have someone who can give the historical perspective on this, Greer Fay Cashman of the Jerusalem Post, who has covered the president's residence and spoken to ambassadors from around the world for many years in her wonderful coverage for the Jerusalem Post. Greer, good morning.
Good morning, Gil.
So please explain me from your point of view what the significance of so many world leaders coming to Israel is.
I think it's very important at this moment in history, shall we say, because we've seen a resurgence of anti-Semitism all over the world, and not just in countries which are notoriously anti-Semitic, but even in countries which were very kind to Jews and absorbed them and allowed them to progress. The country that I come to, for instance, Australia, had 2 Jewish governors general. And that's amazing. I mean, the first one was more than 60 years ago. So you can tell that Australia was very open. America was very open, except during the war it would not accept refugees. And the same with Canada, which is now a beacon of humanity and civil rights and all kinds of things like that. But you've got other countries coming which are notoriously anti-Semitic, or were, like Lithuania, Romania, and other places. I'm very glad that the Italians have now decided to accept the international definition of anti-Semitism. And you can see that a lot of countries no longer want to be associated with anti-Semitism, although I think there's a bit of a problem in that not all countries accept Israel's definition of anti-Semitism, which is if you're anti-Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And I don't think that's quite true. I think people can be anti-Israel because of certain Israeli policies, but it doesn't mean that they hate Jews.
Okay. All right. So we have here coming, we have Prince Charles coming, we have Putin coming, we have Macron coming, we have Chancellor Merkel coming.
But nearly all these people have been here before. They just haven't been here as a group.
That's true. Then this will be quite a group all together. And how is Israel preparing for this?
Look, the all-together is something that they're quite used to. If you go into Google and you look at major events that affect the world as a whole or Europe, you will see nearly all of these people in group photographs over and over and over again. They just haven't been in group photographs in the Middle East.
Okay, so they're here, though. Is Israel able to handle 45 heads of state?
Israel did this without any preparation for both Rabin's funeral and Peres's funeral. This time they had preparation, and I think Israel will do a very fine job in welcoming these people, in hosting these people, and in making sure that nothing goes wrong.
Okay, so the first incident that there's been, though, was that the president of Poland canceled his trip to Israel, and yesterday he gave an interview to Israel public broadcasting, complaining about the treatment that Israel has received.
Yeah, but Poland as such is not boycotting the forum. The Polish ambassador will be at Yad Vashem on Thursday, and there are approximately 10 to 12 Polish journalists coming to Israel to cover it. So Poland isn't actually boycotting it, but I think personally, as a second-generation survivor who has a long history of Polish ancestors, I think that he's correct. Because, look, the Germans conquered Poland. Poland was the first country conquered in the war, or occupied during the war. They set up all these death camps in Poland. Poland suffered more than any other country. I mean, I know that Yad Vashem likes to say that the majority of people murdered in the Holocaust were Jews and were murdered because they were Jews and not because they were Poles. But it didn't make any difference to the Nazis. And in fact, if you take a look at statistics, there were nearly as many Poles who were not Jewish as those who were Jewish who were murdered. So he has an absolute right. In fact, he has the first right to speak at this. But then you have to remember who's footing the bill.
Even if there were Poles who operated the camps and who were very much involved in that strategy and who murdered their neighbors and plundered and took a lot of joy in being part of the effort of the final solution. It seems to be that the Poles are upset that Israel didn't let them speak at the ceremony, and that it's a fight between him and Putin that doesn't really even have anything to do with Israel. So it seems rather complicated.
Well, it's complicated in other ways, too, because, for instance, all along, President Rivlin, who issued the invitations, I mean, at the behest of Yad Vashem, but even so, he was the one that issued the invitations, which is one of the reasons that they were accepted, because it's president to president. But Rivlin keeps on talking about the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and in Yad Vashem they keep on talking about anti-Semitism. It's as if two totally different things are happening.
Is this an opportunity for world leaders to tell the Jewish people that they're sorry for what their countries did?
Look, it's very hard because most of these leaders were not yet born when the Holocaust came to an end. So why are they to blame? They're not to blame for what their forebears did.
Okay, that is a point.
It's customary to apologize for the sins of your nation, but you're personally not to blame.
Okay, well, Macron wasn't born when the Six-Day War happened, and here we are. They're coming to Israel, leaders from around the world, even though there is no peace process going on. We were warned decades ago that if there's no peace process, that the world will be shunning Israel and boycotting Israel. And here we have 45 leaders, 49 delegations. The gap between the 45 and 49 is because of the Vice President of the United States, among others, and he's pretty impressive too. What does that say?
One of the things that I mentioned in the story that I've got, I think, in this morning's Jerusalem Post, is that inadvertently this is also serving the interests of the Palestinians, because several of the people who are coming are going to be meeting with Mahmoud Abbas. So maybe just because all these people are here in one fell swoop, and they're just moving from Jerusalem to either Bethlehem or Ramallah, then maybe something that has not yet been achieved may be achieved, simply because so much is happening in so short a period of time.
And it could very well be that they will end up using this opportunity to call on Israel to help the Palestinians the same way that and try to make some kind of connection there that could make Israel feel uncomfortable?
Well, a lot of them have been acting as liaisons for Israel, whether openly or secretly, but they have been doing it.
Does this say anything about Israeli politics that there are this many leaders who have come here with Netanyahu being the prime minister, or because Rivlin was the one who invited them in Yad Vashem and the Holocaust? It is they're here in spite of Netanyahu.
I think many of them are in a similar position to Netanyahu. I mean, politics does corrupt.
Oh, there are leaders that are going through their own problems.
Right.
That's true. But Netanyahu can say, look, while I'm prime minister, look, the world is coming to Israel. We have become a destination that leaders around the world are proud to come to. No one can really take that away from him, no?
Nobody can take that away from him. And the fact of the matter is, even with everything that's piled up against him, the man has been carrying on with business as usual. And he has been received around the world with pomp and ceremony, despite the fact that some people say nasty things about him behind his back after he's gone. But the fact is that people do realize the positive things that he's capable of, the fact that he's a charismatic speaker, the fact that he's a great intellectual, all sorts of other things about him. I mean, look, I personally am a leftist. I would never vote for him, but I admire him.
Now, the foreign press is coming from around the world to cover this event, and Israel is preparing for this by giving them a disco party in Zedekiah's cave. Can you explain that one?
I think it's a mistake to take them to Zedekiah's cave because it's politically explosive. Zedekiah's cave is right underneath the Muslim Quarter.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening with that and what kind of coverage we get. Let's hope that there aren't rockets fired or something else, someone trying to prove some kind of point while all the leaders are here from around the world that would hurt Israel's image.
Also remember, Gil, that at the time that they're being taken to Zedekiah's place, I'm not even sure how many of them will agree to go, not for political reasons, but because it happens to coincide with the dinner that President Rivlin is hosting for all these VIPs. So many of them will be glued to their television sets or their cell phones or whatever it is, the big screens in the various places that they will be stationed. I'm not so sure they're going to be interested in being entertained in Zedekiah's cave.
And you will be at that fancy dinner covering it for the Jerusalem
I will be at that
Post.
fancy dinner, but not with these fancy people, because all the delegations or members of delegations who've been invited, and not all of them have been invited, only those who actually accompanied on first-level basis the various leaders will be invited, and a few Israelis, and so we will be sitting in a tent, not in the same room.
Oh, well. Well, I hope they feed you anyway and treat you with the proper respect, Greer.
I don't have a problem. I'm fine.
Thank you so much, Greer Fay Cashman,
You're more
who
than
has
welcome.
been covering international affairs and ambassadors and the president's residence for the Jerusalem Post for many years, and is a national treasure. We are going to take a break over here, here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Ours is a story filled with both challenge and controversy, but ultimately, it's also a story of hope and redemption. I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is The Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we're back here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where, as we said, what the significant event of this week is this delegation of 49. Is this group of 49 delegations of leaders, presidents, prime ministers, kings, and princes from around the world who will soon be coming here to Jerusalem to tie up our traffic. And that is something that, while might be annoying, is a source of pride. I will sit in that traffic jam over the next couple days with joy, knowing that Israel is not being isolated in any way, that we are welcoming the entire world. Now, I wish we would be welcoming them for a more positive cause than to mark the Holocaust, but it's very important that they are marking the Holocaust. It's very important that they're here. They are here in spite of Israeli politics. They would be here no matter who our prime minister is, and that is a good thing too, that we can overcome politics. But right now, we are, of course, in the midst of politics. When I did my show last week, and I had a debate between Jeremy Salton and Uri Zaki, it was funny because 3 hours later, it turned out that Jeremy Salton, that he was actually representing the opposite. As you might recall, Uri Zaki had been there representing Meretz immediately after it made a deal with the Labour Party. And I said, look, they're uniting. The right is dividing. And there was Jeremy defending the right, dividing 3 hours later. Bezalel Smotrich of the National Union Party would be running together with the New Right Party and putting pressure on the Bayit Yehudi Party to also run, and that is what ended up happening. Not only did the left unite, but also the right united. Our next Knesset will have the fewest number of parties ever. We'll have only 8 parties. Think about that. Since the State of Israel was founded until September, we always had 10 parties. We always had double-digit parties. And then in the September election, we had only 9 parties that were chosen, and one of those parties, Yamina, on the right, happened to split before the votes were even counted. So we never actually ended up having less than 10 parties. And now we're going to have only 8, even though it's very possible that parties will split again. They are saying, at least in Yamina, that they're going to try to stay together after the vote. The joint list of Arab parties will stay together after the vote. Labor and Meretz, there's no real reason for them to split. They could, but they might not. They might decide that that bond that they've made is a permanent bond because there's not enough support on the left to really function anyway in 2 separate parties. We'll see. But for me, I think it's been fascinating that we're moving toward having fewer parties in Israel. We're not quite going to become the Democrats and Republicans, but after the current leaders of Shas and United Torah Judaism leave, whether to retire or to go to prison, because both of them are facing indictments, I don't see any reason why they have to be 2 separate parties forever. We could have just one party on the right, one party on the left, one ultra-Orthodox party, one Arab party, maybe another party or 2, and that's it. And that would make it perhaps easier to form a government, or maybe not. Because right now, the fighting that we're seeing as we speak right now is actually within the Likud party, between Netanyahu and his allies on one side, and those who feel the need to actually follow proper procedures according to the law on the other side. We've got the Knesset Speaker, Yuli Edelstein, who received a request already at the end of December to convene the Knesset plenum in order to have a vote on Netanyahu's request for immunity from prosecution. It was Netanyahu who requested it. The Blue and White Party formally put in the request, and Yuli Edelstein helped Netanyahu a lot by stalling. The vote will be happening only on the 28th of January, only a week from today. And we'll probably be speaking about this next week. We'll see if we can do a show next week about that. Yuli Edelstein is now facing the wrath of Netanyahu, Netanyahu's son, Netanyahu's allies. Yuli Edelstein faced a tweet from Netanyahu's son Yair that said that Yuli Edelstein's father-in-law, Leonid Nevzalin, who is an oligarch, is wanted for murder in Russia, which is not a nice thing for Yair Netanyahu to say. But an even worse thing is he said that Nevzalin bankrolls Haaretz and keeps it alive. There's nothing that makes Yuli Edelstein look worse to the right-wing voters that he depends on than being connected to Haaretz, the paper that people on the right in Israel love to hate. If his father-in-law is keeping Haaretz alive, then there will be people on the right who will want Yuli the opposite fate for Yuli, as if he is his father-in-law's keeper. Yuli Edelstein was married to a woman that he married in Russia when he was, before he was even a prisoner of Zion, who stayed loyal to him while in Siberia, and she died a few years ago here after a long battle with a terrible disease that he helped her with so much. And then, yes, he married a younger woman who is the daughter of a rich oligarch from Russia. More power to him. Yuli Edelstein's current wife, Irina Nevzalin, runs the Diaspora Museum. Her father saved the Diaspora Museum. When you visit Israel next time, visit the Diaspora Museum, because there's a lot there about the Jewish people. It is the museum of the Jewish people, and it is a fascinating place. I think we should all be thankful to Leonid Nevzalin for saving this museum. Or perhaps some of these 45 world leaders should be visiting this museum while they're here. But let's be thankful they're visiting Yad Vashem. But they should see about what there used to be, about what's no longer with us, in part because of the Holocaust. So now we will see, how will Yuli Edelstein handle this pressure? There have been so many people on the right who've been demonized by Netanyahu and people around them before, whether it's President Reuven Rivlin, unquestionably right-wing. Netanyahu tried to stop him from being president. Gideon Sa'ar, who ran against Netanyahu, had the nerve to do that and faced the wrath. And how about Bogi Ya'alon, unquestionably right-wing. I spoke to him yesterday for about an hour in an interview that parts of which were in the Jerusalem Post already today, parts a few weeks ahead. After listening to him, he is unquestionably in favor of keeping the land of Israel and everything else you want to define as right-wing. But Netanyahu has painted him as a left-wing traitor, just like he has to Gideon Sa'ar, and just like is being done right now to Yuli Edelstein. And so we're in the middle of some dirty politics here. Maybe we should be hiding this from these world leaders while they're here. We want to put on our best face. But just back to that before we close our show. We like to talk about miracles here on the Land of Israel Network. It is a prophecy. It is a miracle that leaders from around the world are coming here to Jerusalem, to Zion. And we have to be thankful to God that the Jewish people are alive today to witness this happening. That's 75 years after the liberation of Auschwitz. There is a Jewish state that is strong, that protects its people, that it welcomes leaders from around the world, that can be proud of its policies, that can be proud of its accomplishments, that can be proud of its people who did not succumb to the Holocaust, who would not be extinguished, who would not give in, and who are now stronger than ever. Thank God. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you for being with us here on Inside Israel today on the Land of Israel Network, broadcasting from Jerusalem. Bye-bye.
Who are we as a people? Who are we as a nation? What does it mean to be a Jew in the Land of Israel, as a Jew in Judea? What is our message to the world? We're finally back in our land, and we get to ask these questions.
Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to make Judea and Samaria an issue for the entire world, to know that the Jews have a place in the world.
Israel Inspired with Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.